Well, maybe we should start, and Wongdu, who's kindly pulling the strings behind the scene this evening, will let anybody else coming who wants to come join the group tonight. Hope everybody had a good break over Easter, enjoyed ourselves but didn't overindulge in chocolate, and above all stayed fit and kept as happy as conditions allow. Oh, and before I forget, I'll try to remember this to say this at the end as well. But no doubt some folks who've come here right now will leave before the end. So next week, Ajahn Barry Subhaddo will be leading the class. That's important. And amazingly, he will be leading the class the following week as well. Now, as you know, Ajahn Barry usually leads the class on the last Thursday of the month. And next Thursday is the last Thursday of the month. When we get to May, his travels mean that he can't do the last Thursday in May, whenever that is. But I asked him on bended knee, when could you teach the class? And he said, the first Thursday of the month. Am I going to complain? Not at all. So for the next 2 weeks, we've got Ajahn Barry zooming in from Spain, which is great. I don't know whether there are any newcomers, particularly to the class or to meditation. We've all had a break. We could all probably do with a bit of topping up. So if you're not used to this class, what we usually do is in the first half, I'll try and give a bit of guidance. Then I might think of something possibly helpful to say for a few minutes. And then in the second half, a bit more silent. I'll try to be silent, relatively silent sitting, and then questions and answers and discussion at the end. And when we end is pretty much up to you, but we usually seem to allow Wongdu to enjoy the evening with his family about 8 o'clock. And everybody's on mute at the moment, and I'd like to keep it that way until we get to the sort of discussion time at the end. But that shouldn't stop you from sending through by chat any questions you've got. I'm going to keep an eye on the sort of chat box, and Wongdu's doing the same. So if you want to send anything through by chat, please feel free to do so at any time. So, I know what we'll do. Yeah, you've put up, we've got up there, generating the mind of enlightenment. And the reason I put that up there is a very selfish reason. It means a lot to me. That's why. And I heard about this from the Dalai Lama, actually, at an event way back. And the point about it is, this sort of gives me a reason why I'm doing this. It's a reason for doing this, right? Generating the mind. Why are we generating the mind of enlightenment? That's why are we doing this? And the answer is there, you see. We're doing it for the benefit of all sentient beings. And of course, all sentient beings includes each one of us sitting in our living rooms or kitchen or wherever we are now. We're in there too. But we're doing it to, last line, to dispel the miseries of the world. And that seems to me really such a terribly important motivation, because we all know, we mess up. Maybe we think our practice isn't going very well. We're doing the best we can, but it's a bit hopeless, blah, 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 blah. But this is just in terms of me and my successes and failures. We're doing this for the benefit of all beings, maybe in mysterious ways I certainly don't understand. This is benefiting everybody else. I mean, obviously, including the people, one lives with, one comes in contact with, and all of that. But that's why I think it's a really good motivator. I really do. I will repeat it. And you can repeat it yourselves or just have a look at it. And as I say, I think it's powerful stuff. With a wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until the attainment of full enlightenment. Enthused by compassion and wisdom, today, in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind of enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, and as long as sentient beings remain, may I too abide to dispel the miseries of the world. And I'm even going to say that again, because I think it's very good. With a wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until the attainment of full enlightenment. Enthused by compassion and wisdom, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind of enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, and as long as sentient beings remain, may I too abide to dispel the miseries of the world. There's lots of good stuff in there that we could talk about sometime. Like the immediacy of this practice. Today in the Buddha's presence, I generate, lovely stuff, fascinating stuff. Right. So for the benefit of all sentient beings, let's do a bit of this generating the mind of enlightenment. And whether you're kind of new to this class, new to meditation, or whether you've been doing this for lifetimes, what is really helpful is to bring to this little period together open-minded curiosity. This is a mind-opening practice. An open-minded curiosity. And it's the curiosity thing which I think is quite interesting. What's all this about? There's a very advanced, here's some very advanced practice. Very advanced practice. Just sit here and see what happens. Just sit here and see what happens. Wow. Yeah. And you needn't have any other instruction. Just sit there. As long as we do, sit and notice what happens. But having said that, we might need a little bit of help. And that's where things like technique, I suppose, for want of a better word, can help. And so I'd like to suggest a few ways of settling the mind down, setting up a helpful posture. By the way, however you're sitting is good enough as long as we're alert, seeing what happens. You got to be alert to see what happens. Alert posture, but also a relaxed posture. The essence, to me, of this mindfulness practice is seeing what happens, is noticing, but not attaching. Noticing and letting go. Noticing and letting go, noticing and letting go. That's what I remind myself to do. Notice and let go. Not ignore, not deny, to notice. Oh, that's drowsiness. That's a bit of negativity. Some happiness floating around there somewhere. But to let go of it. All these things are impermanent. All these mental conditions are impermanent. Don't hang on. Don't hang on. And by the way, Wongdo, if we could have a Buddha image as well, that would enhance the practice. If you could pop up the Buddha image, not the one I'm seeing right now. Anyway, an alert, relaxed posture. Alert posture helps noticing, right? And a relaxed posture helps letting go. There we go. The Buddha image. Lovely. Thank you very much. Alert, relaxed posture. And I always like to bring a bit of attention into the body at the beginning of a period of practice. How's the body feeling? And I don't really mean, when I just logged on 6:20 and met the folks at the Buddhist Society, how you doing? You're keeping well, all that sort of stuff. I don't really mean that sort of big picture, how's the body doing? Now I'm meaning noting sensations in the body. You know, is there tension in the body? Is there heaviness in the body? Are we feeling light? Are we feeling energetic? A bit cramped? Whatever, just notice sensations in the body. In fact, you can drill down a little bit. Just notice the feeling of sitting. Here we are, we're all sitting. I mean, we may be standing or lying down, but let's assume we're all sitting. And the feeling of sitting. We're here right now, sitting here, alert, relaxed posture. Notice any sensations. And the answer is we've all noticed sensations because we've brought along a sensitive body this evening. I noticed the feeling of sitting on a chair. I'm on a cushion on a chair. And my feet are on the floor. So I notice feelings there. And my hands, one hand's on top of the other. I notice the sensations there, the pressure, the warmth in the hands. And I'm breathing, and I feel the breath in my abdomen. Waistband pressure. And I just notice my shoulders are tense or not. So it's like feet or legs. If you're sitting on the floor, lots of sensations in the legs, hips, abdomen, breathing, hands parked somewhere, shoulders. I just scan the body. I mean, next week with Ajahn Barry here, he likes to really encourage this practice of sweeping or scanning the body from the top of the head to the soles of the feet. That's a great practice to do. Just noticing sensation. No real judgment involved. Mindfulness of the body, of sensations in the body. And this is a great practice because it cuts through all this stuff about opinions about the body, about me and my appearance or whatever. Gender? I don't know. Yeah, it's like sensations in the body, just sensations in the body. And it can be quite refined, you know. Any sensations on the top of the head, for example, or around the eyes. Are the eyes open or closed? I don't know. Mine are closed. I personally suggest closing the eyes. Other people may not. May half close them. Whatever you like. Closed or half closed. Well, it's not the idea to turn the attention inwards, isn't it? Although we've got a lovely Buddha image up on the screen, you know, we can just, and we like looking at it. Just I hope we like looking at it. One thing we can let go of is that. Turn the attention inwards and notice things like sensations in the body. And throughout a period of meditation, we're sitting here for a little while. You can't deny the fact that the body, the sensitive body, will be feeling things, sensations. Okay. And really this is all about noticing the way they come and go and not getting too attached or averse to them. So when there's discomfort in the body, be aware of that. Be aware of the mind not wanting that to happen. Just be aware of that. And then if it's really uncomfortable, potentially painful even, you know, change posture. But notice the difference between the discomfort, the pain, and the not wanting it to be there. That's interesting. Just explore that. And then move. And as we scan the body, maybe we notice a bit of anxiety in the guts, a bit of tension there, or in the shoulders. Or if we're trying, you know, have we had a bit of anger today? Is our jaw clamped shut? Is our brow furrowed because we're trying to do something? Just sitting here, for goodness sake. And we notice these sorts of tensions. If we want to, we can relax, we can let go. And I have no real problem about somebody approaching a period of meditation just with the idea of relaxing. Relaxation isn't the same thing as meditation, but it sure helps. Oh, yeah, if you can't sleep at night, you put on one of these sleep tapes, and what they do is they scan the body, you all the way up from your tip of your toes, top of your head, noticing sensations and letting them go. How's the mood this evening? And just as we've made no particular judgment about this naturally sensitive body we've all brought along tonight, what's the mood like? No judgment involved, just an honest, noting. It's open, it's easy, feeling pretty good about life, the universe and everything, or, oh God, there's so much to be unhappy about. Let me just notice the mood. We're the observer now. That's the mood. And the conditions. The mood is conditioned like everything else. Well, there's plenty to condition us to have an unhappy mood, an anxious mood, a worried mood. And then there are conditions which, a good friend has dropped in, or we've had a nice meal. Pretty good. The mood's easy and light. It's been a nice, bright day where I am. That lightens up the heart a bit. Just aware of those, aware of the way the mood is conditioned. And they'll be thinking as well. We're not going to stop thinking. What we do may help thinking subside. It's a question of causes and conditions. The mind will think. Can we sort of learn to let go of that? Change the conditions so the mind quietens down a bit. If that's what we want to do. If that's what we want to do. Alert and relaxed, noticing and learning to let go. Noticing and letting go. And this is where a meditation object can play a valuable role. Something like the feeling of the breath, the feeling of the next in-breath and out-breath. It's a physical sensation. There's nothing mystical or magical about it. And we notice it in the abdomen, on the nostrils, wherever. The rhythm of the breath, the feeling of the breath, no control, nothing special. It's there, in and out. And if it helps, make a little mental note, if it helps. And there are plenty of other little anchors, meditation objects, a mantra, form of words, a word, peace, peace, Buddho, Buddho, a phrase, may I be well, may others be well. Another little stabilizer, a little anchor. But encourages us to let go of wherever the attention has wandered and redirect it back to the breath, the mantra, the mala beads that we might be using, whatever our little anchor, stabilizer, meditation object is. That's its role. To me, one of its many roles is helping us to let go of where the attention's gone. So the mind will wander. No judgment about that at all. We note that. And maybe when we just, there I go again. Then I have a choice. We all have a choice, don't we? We can either stay with the thought, magnify it, or try and suppress it. There's no reason to do any of that. Just note it. And then quite deliberately remind ourselves we're still alive and breathing. In breath. And if we want to, we can redirect the attention any which way we like. We're not slaves, actually, to thinking and emotion. We're not slaves to that. We might want to be slaves. We might volunteer to be a slave. This is a problem of being ignorant. A lot of this practice is learning to let go. And for me, that's where this terribly simple practice of mindfulness of breathing. So useful. So useful. And we can do it anywhere. We don't have to be sitting, in the virtual Buddhist Society's Thursday meditation class. Breathing all the time. Anytime we want to, it's there as our little refuge. In breath. Out breath. It is just such a simple practice. Such a simple practice. Noting the breath, or whatever the meditation object is that we use. Mantra, the sound of silence, the beads. It's simple. In breath. Out. The difficulty is letting go of the alternatives. The breath, not terribly stimulating most of the time, is it? But my memories, my fantasies, my plans, hugely fascinating. The attention grabs on them. Yeah? And the practice is noticing that. There we go again. And then there's the breath, or the sound of silence, or the mantra. Letting go, and redirecting the attention back to the next in-breath and the next out-breath. And if we like, we can get quite interested in the breath, not kind of explaining the way it is or anything like that. But each breath, each in-breath has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and so does each out-breath. And sometimes it's a long breath, and sometimes it's a short breath, and sometimes it's a deep breath, and sometimes it's a shallow breath. And this is not about commenting on the breath, it's just, oh yeah, following the breath all the way through. A natural breath all the way through, from the beginning of an in-breath to the end of an out-breath. And notice we're doing this not by grasping hold of the breath or whatever our meditation object is. We're not trying to hang on to it. If we're trying to do anything, it's to let go of the alternatives. Letting go, in particular, of thinking, emoting, letting go even of physical sensations, letting go of any sounds that we may hear, and redirecting the attention back to the rhythm of the breath. It's quite okay to pause and check the posture. Towards the end of the day, you can be a bit tired. You may feel the body slumping a bit. That's natural. But, put a bit more effort into holding the body upright. If we find we're nodding off, sit with the eyes open. Or we may note that we've kind of tensed up. Maybe we're trying a bit too hard. Relax, take the foot off the accelerator. Ease off a bit. please take this opportunity to stretch, wriggle around, or send through a chat if that's what you'd like to do. Nothing's come through yet. If anybody's having, kind of like real problems right now, which they'd like to address as soon as possible. I'm getting a power failure here, that's what I'm doing. Do send something through in the chat box. No matter. Okay. Now that's very, very, I'm so glad somebody sent this through. What about headaches when we meditate? That's interesting. I don't know why any one individual has a headache. I mean, we're all different. These are difficult times. So supposing it was me. And cross my fingers and all that sort of stuff. I don't usually suffer from headaches. If I found myself getting a headache, for me it would mean that I was really trying too hard, to tell you the truth. I'm quite a studious type, and I've certainly sort of got a headache from just slogging away on this job I've got. And then, so I don't know why any one individual would get a headache. Everything from, as I say, trying too hard to, well, you got a bit of a medical condition. I don't know. But the question is it a good one? So it's like, well, given that I've got this headache, right, what do I do? Do I focus on the headache or go back to the breath or what? Again, I don't think it's a clear-cut answer. The thing about focusing on the headache itself, like any other, pain, is if you bring your attention, in my experience, if you bring attention to pain, you can notice this business about, well, first of all, the actual intensity of the pain usually isn't a constant. It's sort of worse, better. Nobody's saying if you put your attention on it, it's going to disappear. But you notice it, variations in it. The problem is if you put the attention on and of course another thing you can do is just notice our aversion to the pain. I wouldn't want to sit here. I'm terribly sympathetic to this question. I certainly wouldn't want to sit here with a headache. I wouldn't want to. No, I would not want to. That's rather different from saying, it feels like this. It feels like this, and I don't want it to feel like this. So you can just notice that. Perhaps the best thing to do is just to relax. I don't know. I don't know. But perhaps the best thing to do is to completely and absolutely relax. Maybe one shouldn't be meditating if it's just a meditation issue. If when you get up and have a cup of soup afterwards and go to bed, you haven't got a headache, okay, start from there. And maybe explore a different method of meditation, for example. And there are different methods of meditation. It's a darn good question, and I can't tell the it's like there's no clear answer to the individual questioner. I don't know, but there are different sorts of meditation practice, mindfulness practice, which I wouldn't have thought which are worth a try. I mean, for example, walking meditation. One can be mindful doing walking meditation. It's a formal practice, right? And it's not so refined, frankly, as using the breath. I could tell you more about it. And if I wasn't confined to my little study here, I could even demonstrate it. Right? You're just aware of the sensations in the feet when you walk. Right? Oh, yeah, and the idea of trying too hard, it's like I'm looking out of my window at the moment, a beautiful day. I'd love to do some walking in the garden today. And it would not be, one of these things where I'd get very tense doing it. I really wouldn't. Beautiful. Just feeling the feet on the ground, walking along. Experiment is the answer. Experiment is the answer. Try all the things that I've been hinting at, perhaps. Good question. Wish I could give a good answer. Okay. What I wanted to say was I suppose if there was a theme for what's going on for me this evening, it's like keeping this simple, keeping this practice simple. The mindfulness of breathing is an incredibly simple practice, isn't it? Incredibly simple practice. That requires no equipment at all. It does require a lot of patience, but it doesn't require any equipment. But you notice how, as Buddhists now, we can make it all terribly complicated, unnecessarily complicated. If you're really into Buddhism, you'll know all about different facets of meditation, the samatha meditation, the vipassana meditation. What's all that about then? So samatha meditation is all about tranquility. It's all about cultivating tranquility and peace of mind and calmness and sort of steadiness, mental steadiness, and maybe even sort of serenity. All of these things sound quite attractive to me. Peace of mind. And that's the, if you like, the fruit of samatha meditation. Tranquility, peace of mind. Wonderful. Vipassana meditation, insight meditation. Insight into what, please? Insight into Dharma. Into the Dharma, Four Noble Truths. Suffering's cause, sensation, and path. Right? And it's like, the mind goes, well, what should I be doing? What should I be doing tonight? Cultivating samatha, peace and tranquility and calmness? Or should I be, really using my meditation practice to develop insight into what the Dharma is all about? What should I do? Is this the best technique to do it? But which should I do? And there's an implied either or there, dichotomy. I'm going to say, I don't know if I'm being controversial or not. It's not either or, it's both and. Using this very simple technique, in breath, out breath, if that's the one we use, or the sound of silence, or the mantra. These are very, very simple techniques. And in doing them, we automatically cultivate both samatha and vipassana. How so? How is that? By the way, let me interrupt for a moment because there's a question that's come through, and if you don't mind, I'll deal with it at the end, okay? Because it's quite a good one. I'll deal with it at the end, or try to. Right. So here we are. Right. I'm saying keep this practice simple. I'm also saying, but what should I do? Should I develop insight? I've heard that insight leads to full and complete liberation from suffering. Or should I cultivate peace of mind, samatha? And I'm saying this simple practice that we're doing does both, actually. Does both. And you can see how, I'll just talk about using the breath for the moment, but the same is true of a mantra or anything else. When we allow the attention to rest on the breath, just the words I mean, to rest on the breath, and when we allow the attention, not force the attention, when we remove the underlying conditions so that the attention rests automatically without any force on the breath, usually it's not stimulating, is it? Usually it's not stimulating. In breath, out breath. And it by nature, unless we've got a medical condition of some sort, even a cold. Usually it's very peaceful and calming and tranquilizing, and that's samatha. The breath can be very, very blissful, actually. If we do that, if conditions allow, and maybe it requires special conditions, a lot of peace, a lot of quiet, you really get into just letting the attention rest on the breath, relaxing into the breath. It can be delightful. That's samatha. That's samatha. Then the attention wanders. And that is really, really interesting, because we sort of judge that to be a fault. My mind should not wander, right? But it's not a fault. It's all part of our nature. It's, to use a bit of a cliche, far from being a fault. If we look at it aright, it's a learning opportunity. It's a learning opportunity. So there we are. We'd quite like the attention to rest on the breath, but the monkey mind has another idea, right? It wants to go time traveling. It wants to pick up that memory of the past, yesterday or in our childhood or whatever, and lock onto that. It wants to explore the future. There's a worry there. How's it going to work out? Will I be happy? Have I got a holiday coming up? There's all of that stuff. And you just notice how attached we are to these plans, remembering, fantasizing, because we're on autopilot most of the time, aren't we? And so we see that. We just see how something can happen, trigger a thought, or a feeling or a sensation. It's pleasant, it's unpleasant. We explore it, we lock onto it, we attach to it. We reinforce the programming, don't we? We're on autopilot. And by the way, that's called insight into dependent origination. That's it. This is the process of continually being reborn as somebody who has this particular programming. And it's very interesting, because peaceful, calm, tranquilizing samatha, that could be boring, couldn't it? That could be a source of dukkha. It's quite extraordinary, really. But there again, that's part of one's programming. So one thing one notices with a bit more insight, you see, is we're sort of split personalities, aren't we? Because part of us, we're heavily invested in me and my story, which has a past, which has a future, these likes and these dislikes, which we buy into all the time if we're not very mindful. And that gives us a buzz, that gives us a buzz. That's part of us. And the other part of us really likes peace of mind. Doesn't that say something about anatta? What are we? Who are we? Are we a unified thing at all? And of course, this practice also doesn't just illuminate things like our attachment to thinking and planning and remembering and fantasizing and all of that, but it gives us a way to learn and to let go, to learn how to let go. Notice it, let go, back to the breath. Very, very simple practice, a very simple practice. And it cuts through all these sort of distinctions between, should I cultivate insight? Should I go for peace of mind? It'll happen. Just do the practice. Just do it. Just do the practice. And so let's take the advice and sit for a little bit longer. And I promise I will return to the question that's appeared in the box. And any others, anybody wants to ping through by chat. So I'm not going to say much, except set the body up, alert, relaxed posture. Check it out. Any sensations of note, any tension. Maybe a couple of deep breaths to settle down. A quick body scan. How's the mood? That's interesting. How's the mood now compared with when we started about 40 minutes ago? Interesting. Notice that. And then pick up the meditation object. The feeling of the in-breath, the feeling of the out-breath, that rhythm there. The mantra, peace, peace. May I be well, may others be well. The sound of silence. The feeling of the mala beads as we move from one hand to the other. Simple practice. Noticing and letting go. So, things to discuss. And I'm sure that that some folks will want to quit before the very end of proceedings. So let me just say right now, for the next 2 weeks, Ajahn Barry Subhaddo will be leading the class, which I think is great. It shows that we must have done something good in a previous lifetime. Very good. So here's this question in the chat box. Okay. Right. Well, I'm going to look at this in sort of 2 parts. Sometimes I'm very anxious and trying to sleep. If we're anxious, that's difficult to get to sleep. So I want to say something in general about about that sort of issue around anxiety and around sleep. Here's it's like, it's horrible. You lie in bed, you want to get to sleep, and you can't, and the mind just whizzes around and round and round on this subject, which makes us anxious. Now, there's loads and loads. I'm just amazed how many people there must be in the world suffering from sleep problems, because we all get these sort of ads and whatnot on our phones and so on, giving helpful advice on how to sleep. And I'm sure they're all kind of wonderful. And for all I know, they work. What I want to do is just make a couple of suggestions from the point of view of like what we're doing this evening. Try before we go to bed, just doing a bit of meditation. I mean, literally before we go to bed. Now, in my experience, that's quite interesting. And I'm not talking about sitting for a long time or anything like that. Choose a number, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, sit in meditation. Now, I find that quite interesting because suddenly we realize when we're going to sit for 10 minutes, and it's just before bedtime, how tired we are, actually. It seems a perfect it makes meditation seem a bit weird, but it's like, I'm so drowsy, I'm so tired, and so I go to bed. And that's quite interesting in itself. Or if we sit meditation before we go to bed and there's all the anxiety there, then what do we do then? So this leads to something else on this business about sleep and getting a good night's sleep and meditation and all the rest of it. And if this is a problem, try this experiment. Better meditation is a wonderful practice, wishing ourselves well and others well, wishing ourselves to be happy and free from suffering, wishing others to be happy and free from suffering. And there are many benefits claimed for practicing metta bhavana, cultivating loving kindness. And I can't remember them all, and so I won't even try. But one of them is you have a good night's sleep. As you have a good night's sleep. Practice metta bhavana. Just try it and see. Try it and see. So cultivate metta bhavana, and maybe that helps. And if we're suffering from anxiety, we need all the loving kindness, we can get. Right? And wish ourselves well. May I be well. May I be happy. May I be free from anxiety. And we share that with other people. And try that practice. Make that our practice. Make that our practice. Metta bhavana. And going back to the earlier question about getting a headache, try doing metta bhavana and see if that, gives us a headache. That's interesting, isn't it? May I be well, may others be well. Not so much, it's like with the intention of not getting a headache, or indeed getting a good night's sleep. Just do it and see what happens. I think that's very good. I think that's quite good advice. as I say, it's one of the classical, the traditional benefits of doing metta. You get a good night's sleep. You don't have horrible dreams, and you wake up feeling refreshed. Try it and put it to the test. Put it to the test. Now, the other aspect of that question is quite interesting. So, imagine a corridor, and an image of the Buddha is at the end of the corridor, and so you pay attention to that, and you feel like you're meeting the Buddha. That's quite interesting, isn't it? Now, I have a question going. Yeah, does that look skillful means? Does that actually help you get a good night's sleep? This is just a pragmatic question. It's not a question of should not, doctrinally this, doctrinally that. If that, I might say it's like a visualization practice. So if you envisage, you're down there with the Buddha image, and you attend to it. Does that help get off to sleep? If so, bingo. Okay. Now, contemplating the image of the Buddha is a very good practice anyway. I mean, that's really kind of like why, when we're meditating, I like Wangdu to put up an image of the Buddha rather than an image of me sitting here, actually, because I find it very, very pleasant to look at an image of the Buddha, and it reminds us, actually, when you look at an image of the Buddha, typically, I've really forgotten, to tell you the truth, what the image of the Buddha image is that they put up. And don't try to do it now. But in a lot of images of the Buddha, a lot of Buddha rupas, you get the Buddha is sitting there, and in one hand he's touching the earth. And the story goes that as the Buddha, was tempted by Mara and all that, sitting under the Bodhi tree, and he called the earth to witness his enlightenment. And the symbolism of that is enlightenment is natural. Enlightenment is natural. And in the Mahayana traditions, there's a lot of emphasis made of the fact that absolutely everybody here and anywhere else has potential to be fully enlightened. It's amazing. Right? The potential's there for each and every one of us to be fully enlightened. If you just wake up to that fact, and that's tremendously encouraging. So, if this, going back to the question, really, if you're awake, you're anxious, right? And you visualize an image of the Buddha, and the question is, the person says, I feel like I'm meeting the Buddha. Why not just say, that's me. That's me. We all have the potential to be fully enlightened. That's very comforting, isn't it? It's very comforting. Maybe it helps with sleep. I don't know. But there you go. Have I used Buddha images in any way like that at all in the past? Only once. Only once. Goes back a long way. It's when my father died, and I went to the funeral home and sat with his body, and I did something which, just talking about it like this, sounds a bit eccentric, but I have to understand, my father was not a Buddhist. Not at all a Buddhist. And I don't know whether he knew that I was a Buddhist, and that's neither here nor there. But I sat there, and there was one particular, at that time, there was one particular image at Amaravati, Buddha image at Amaravati, a golden Buddha. And I visualized that image above my father. That's interesting, isn't it? Somebody who certainly wasn't a Buddhist, good father, no complaints. Right? And envisaged that Buddha image above my father. And I wished an even more eccentric wish. If you knew my dad, I wished that he might be the next Buddha, reborn as the next Buddha. Totally wacky, but it seemed the right thing to do. So these things like Buddha images are there for our use. They can be a skillful means to helping us with life's problems. And in particular, this realization that everybody has the potential to be fully enlightened. It's just kind of lurking, beneath the surface, behind us. So, now, any more, people can unmute. By all means, unmute if you'd like to ask a real live question. I can do that. I've sort of got the gallery view going now. So let me click it. But I mean, you can try waving a hand, or if you've got your camera off, that's not going to help, is it? Now, has anybody got any other questions they'd like to address? A discussion, anything like that? Now, here we go, some more pictures, some more cameras are being switched on. And, that's very good. Well, any questions? Gosh, there's somebody who's got even more books on their bookshelves than I have. Any questions? I mean, just concerns about practice at all? Other news from the Buddhist Society? Gradually, I'm aware that there are probably some people here who live a little further away from London than others do. And my understanding is that as far as this class is concerned, we're going to continue with it by Zoom for the foreseeable future. But the Society is also experimenting, or will be experimenting, with sort of hybrid classes. That's all I know about the way things are going. So I mean, looking ahead, as I say, I'm sort of assuming that this class is going to continue online like this. But do go to the Buddhist Society's website if you want to find out more of what's going on there. Here's another question. Wonderful. How long would you recommend sitting for, and how often? Well, it's like any kind of skill, isn't it? Or training. I'd certainly, I don't want to be prescriptive about it. I mean, just sort of say that the more we do it, the better. Okay. Now, what does that mean? It depends on our circumstances, doesn't it? If you've got a partner, family, job, look at that. So supposing you got a partner and a job, and you got some kids, right? And the dog needs to walk as well sometime, right? Meals have got to be cooked and all the rest of it. Meditating under those circumstances is rather different if you live on your own. No, not if you live on your own. If you live with other people who, like you, wear robes and have a shaven head, you're living in a Buddhist monastery. It's rather different circumstances, aren't they? Or if you don't have any, if you're a lay person and you don't have any particular commitments. I'm long since retired. I have very few excuses. Although, like everybody else, one invents them. Right? So it's like, any kind of skill or a physical activity, really. The more the better. But we live in a community with with other people. We have responsibilities, but it's terribly important, I think, not to be a pain to other people in this practice. It would be self-defeating if somebody thought, I'm just a selfish Buddhist. I just spend all day meditating, and I don't give any attention to what's going on in the rest of the house and other duties and responsibilities. That'd be horrible, wouldn't it? That's not what Buddhism is all about. So obviously, if you want ideal conditions to practice, you'd probably want to shave your head and put on a robe and go and stay in a monastery for a bit, right? Ideal conditions. But I bet you can't get away with doing all the, just I'm going to bed. I'm here. I've given up a lay life. I put all that behind me, and I'm just going to sit here until I realize full and complete liberation from suffering. I'm going to say, who's going to do the washing up around here? Doesn't the garden need a bit of a tweak? A bit of maintenance work needs to be done. I mean, in a monastery, people have chores. In Ajahn Chah's tradition, I mean, it's like quite a lot of us. This is the Thai forest tradition, and a lot of us got a lot out of those teachings, even though certainly don't live in a Thai forest. But the essence of the practice is living in community, actually. Of course, there are periods of meditation and puja and all the rest of it, but there are chores to be done, there are responsibilities to be carried out, even lay people to be taught, right? The monastics, you're supposed to get some grasp of the Buddha's teachings, the scriptures. So don't think that, you're going to escape. Now, there are some opportunities, obviously, in monastic life for having a solitary retreat. Yeah, there are. But most times, you're living in community with other people, and the practice is actually getting on with other people, as is all a lay life, right? So look, the answer to how long would you recommend sitting for and how often? I mean, on the how often thing, I mean, just there again, personally, how often I find morning and at the end of the day, whatever that means. Perhaps not just before bedtime, because I'm too tired, actually. But, in the evening, morning and the evening. And the great thing about doing it in the morning, actually, is, you're sort of putting what's ahead of us in perspective. Probably got stuff to do today. I got up today, and I've got to, it's like just trivial things. Like today, I've got to get up, and we've got a visitor here today. I've got to get the house sorted up today. And then various other odds and sods. And this evening, I've got to log onto the Buddhist Society. So I've got to get things set up so I can do that, right? You have chores, you see. And so you start the day and you address the hassle factor. And I mean, I'm a big fan of metta meditation. So, I've got all these people that I'm going to be seeing today, right? And God, I'm looking busy, and what a fuss it's going to be. And why don't I send them thoughts of loving kindness? And it's like, oh yeah, I've got this meeting coming up. It's in my interest and their interests. Yeah, they should be okay. That's why I'd like to, so you get a bit of perspective first thing in the morning on the day. I like that. I like doing that. And then in the evening, you put the day to bed, don't you? You've had all these experiences today, and you met them, and you probably haven't. If you're anything like me, you started the day with a list of things you've got to do. You might have got half of it done. So, you did your best. May I be well, may I be happy. Or just let the attention rest on the breath and get a good night's sleep. So I would recommend morning, but honestly, I would recommend doing it at any time at all. It doesn't mean you can't meditate in the middle of the day. Of course you can meditate in the middle of the day. Anytime. So anytime. but that's my routine, as it were. Hang on, more questions. Is it fair to say it's easier to describe what a meditating mind isn't rather than what it is? Well, a meditating mind is the mind the way it is right now. A meditating mind just knows that mind, right? It's like it's like this. There's a strap line. Strap line's a horrible line, but Odin at the Buddhist Society likes me to have some sort of meditation is, and I should be advertising, the class each week as being about something or other. But I resist that, and I've just got down there. Mindfulness, it's like this. And the phrase "it's like this" came from Ajahn Subhaddo. He's got these lapel badges. I've got a couple over on the shrine behind me. It's a lapel badge, and it says, "It's like this." It's like this. So a meditating mind recognizes that, oh, it's like this. This is the essence of the practice of sitting down and just seeing what happens. This advanced practice. Just go there, go to your room, sit down, come to the Buddhist Society's class, sit down, and for the next 20 minutes, see what happens. What happens? It's like this. It's like this. So if you like, that's the meditating mind. I mean, it's a mind which is open and just sees things. That's what it's like, including that's what the mind is like. Well, the mind's all over the place today. I got up this morning with all these good intentions, and I look at the post, and there's this bill here, and it's like, ah! The mind's like this. You just notice this. It's this ability to sort of step back a bit. So the meditating mind, I don't know. The meditating mind is whatever it is right now, if that's what you want it to be. It's like, I'm not quite sure what the question means, but it's, to me, the meditating mind is the mind that perhaps can stand back and get off autopilot. Much of what I think, do, say, is automatic. It's automatic. Can we just step back from it a bit? Can we just watch, watch that process of dependent origination, just for a moment or two, to step back from it a bit. I don't know if you want to call that a meditating mind. Next question. Gosh, questions are flooding in. It's great. Can I attain a state of detachment by practicing meditation regularly? Yes. Yeah, I guess. The whole of this practice, puja, is noticing, letting go, learning to detach, learning to detach. This is not inactivity. It's lessening our clinging, lessening our emotional involvement in situations. Let's say it doesn't, it's like there's this phrase, it's like this. This is the way it is, like this. And that's the way it is right now. That says nothing about what we should do next, right? So there's a lot of pain in the world. That's the way it is right now. Doesn't mean we don't care about it. And if we can, we act compassionately to make it better. Right? But it's more like the ability to, regular meditation practice is more like learning this ability actually to let go, to let go. Yeah, and if you want to call that detachment, that's okay, to let go. It's not the same thing as developing indifference at all. It's not. It's like learning to let go. And that clears the way for compassionate, wise action. Okay? Hope that helps a bit. It means that we develop the potential not to get so emotionally involved, to step back from the automatic tendencies we have. Step back a bit from that. It's like take a deep breath and step back. It's that sort of thing. The ability to let go. So I think the answer to your question is yes. Next question. Oh gosh, flooding again. What a lovely crowd of people here. Is it okay to do mostly guided meditation, or should we do more solo practice? What's a healthy ratio? It all depends on circumstances, actually. A lot. I used to. Here's a confession. I really used to enjoy sitting on my own. uh, and until I got into it, sitting, and then obviously you get involved in groups and whatnot with guided meditation. And of course, the practice then is just what? It's just noticing. This is not quite the question you asked, which is about guided meditation, but sitting in a group. I mean, a lot of people get encouragement from sitting in a group, and I think that's great. I mean, in this country, at any rate, Buddhists are pretty isolated people, and I think it's great to sit with other people who are pretty much doing the same thing as each one of us is. I think that's encouraging. But equally, practicing in a group, it's like you got to sit there, and then there's somebody on. If this is, I'm going back into the world of live practice, of face-to-face practice, as it were. In a group, you're sitting there with somebody behind you who's breathing heavily, or somebody comes into the class late, right? It's like just watch the mind getting a bit irritated by all of that. And that's good practice, actually. It's very good practice. I remember once at the Buddhist Society, way back, somebody came to the class who said he'd been meditating a long time, and he had just the most beautiful posture in the world. I couldn't possibly emulate it. And then there were the rest of us there, who are fairly relaxed, actually. And he would get quite annoyed at the fact that other, he actually said to me once, the woman sitting in front of me took her sweater off. And it's like, and? And? So it's like practicing in a group, you can learn a lot. You get a lot of insight into your attachments, the way you like things to be. It's got to be like this. So that's, because I haven't answered the question, but never mind. Let me go back and try again. Where are we doing? Guided meditation. Well, look, if we don't need guided meditation, do we? I don't know. But often we do. I mean, I find it helpful, but I mean, like most of the time, obviously, but in the nature of things, I'm on my own, aren't I? You're on your own, probably. So you do your thing in your room on your own. That's okay. And then you go to a class like this one, and you get a bit of guidance. That can be very helpful. Supposing you're somebody who's never done any meditation before, or got a sleep problem, or whatever it is, or an anxiety problem, and you hear somebody talking about guided meditation and guided metta meditation, which I didn't do tonight, by the way. I can do that sometime. I think it's great. And you learn a lot from that. Or a bit unsecure, like tonight, you could be a bit insecure. Well, is this the right way to go? This particularly on the Theravada side, people get very hung up on samatha versus vipassana, calming tranquility meditation and insight meditation. And which should I be doing? Which is more important? And and it's like, just meditate. Just watch the breath. And both happen simultaneously. Well, not simultaneously. Both happen. So it's like, there again, I have to say guidance. I feel indebted to my many teachers who've given me guidance on meditation, both actually guided meditation, as perhaps we did tonight, and certainly as Ajahn Barry will do next week, right? But more like general guidance in the sense of a Dhamma talk, explaining something or other, or even a guidance in the sense of, here's this very good book. Wow, That's guidance, isn't it? So, I mean, guidance is extremely helpful. But once we've got the hang of what all this is about, then we can practice, on our own. In the early days, when Buddhists, well, in the early days, I don't really mean the early days, that goes back to early part of the 20th century. But when I sort of started getting into Buddhism, which must be in the 70s sometime, I guess, well, there wasn't a lot of guidance. It's as simple as that. There wasn't a lot of guidance. I'm very glad there is more guidance now. But at the end of it's like there's the question is put in kind of like an either or way. Is it okay to do mostly guided meditation, or should we, do more solo practice? We've got to do both, haven't we? Got to do both. I mean, even if we had meditation tapes and whatnot, which gives guidance on it, use them by all means. If it helps, use them. It's like everybody is their own. Actually, the bottom line is everybody here is their own teacher. If guidance helps, use guidance. But if you haven't got that option, practice on our own. And I'm sure anybody who is guiding meditation would want, let's use the word student, would want the student to be able to practice on their own and not be dependent upon having guidance. Guidance is helpful. Practice on your own as well. Any more questions? Somebody says, thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming. Anything else? Yeah, how many? A lot of us are still here. Any other questions, or do we want to do anything else? Well, it's been very, very nice to get back and see all you folks here. All these old timers who are still hanging in there and still doing our stuff. Some newcomers too. That's very good. And so this class, and again, I just hope I haven't missed any chats. I don't think I've missed any chats. Hang on, no. No, lovely to see everybody here. And as I say, next week, please come next week. Ajahn Barry, if you haven't met him, long-time friend of this, well, a long-time member of this class, used to be a member of this class. When I first got into it, whenever it was, back into the 70s, Barry was there too. And then he got heavily into Zen, thought about ordaining in the Zen tradition, didn't do that. Eventually went to Amravati, trained with Ajahn Subhaddo there, and was a monk for a long time. And then he quit being a monk, and now he's living on his own, teaching anybody who wants to be taught. And I'm always pleased to see him. I find it, this is this business about guidance and all the rest of it. I really do find it useful to go to a class when somebody else is doing it, is teaching it, because we're all sort of coming at this from a different angle, our own personal perspective on everything. The core of all of this is exactly the same. Whatever the tradition, actually, the core of it is exactly the same. I've been reading various reasons, a certain amount of Mahayana Buddhism recently. And it's like, the words are different, but the underlying essence of it is exactly the same as in Theravada Buddhism and everything else. And it's just that different teachers are just coming at this at a different angle. It's what works for me that, in each case, it's what works for me that one can pass on, so that when somebody asks a question about whatever it might be, I don't know, tension, anxiety, or whatever, it's like, well, I can tell you what works for me. Ajahn Barry, it would be great if people asked Ajahn Barry next week exactly the same questions they asked me. You won't get the same answer, you see. And I think that's great. That's absolutely brilliant. Because everybody is coming at this from their own experience. Very good. I particularly want to thank Wong Du for managing the IT this evening. I think he deserves to spend the rest of the evening with his family. And I just want to thank you for coming. Do take care over the next week. And I shall be back next week with Ajahn Barry, and I look forward to seeing you all then. Have a safe week. Take care. Lots of love. Bye-bye.